I'm here to talk about a couple of things today. First thing today, it is going to be Clear Lake update from fishing this last weekend. Um, I'll have to get into it, give a little bit of updates on that. And then after that, the topic is going to be, how do I word this? Um, how to turn what you see in a video from one lake into fish catches from another lake. So what I'm basically saying is, best example of that would be I have a video about Malones and about where to fish in Malones by 3 community holes, and there is more you can do with that information by spreading it out to different lakes, looking for very similar things, and kind of how the patterns can transfer between lakes to lakes. So that's kind of what the second half of this is about. More about getting you guys to be able to help catch fish, and less about how I caught them. Anyways, so let's get into Clear Lake. I went up there Saturday, which was during the New Gen team or Pro-Am. I think it's Pro-Am. I don't like fishing while there's other tournaments going on. That was the only day I could go. That's why I did. Water temperature was like 50 to 52. I think the highest I saw the whole day was 54. Water clarity, there was not really much mud to it, surprisingly. I kind of thought there would be a little bit more from like water running and stuff. That lake's settling out really fast right now. I'm not sure why, but I'm not complaining either. We fished around, I caught a crappie early in the day on, just blanked on it, on the little crappie jig that I've been throwing. Actually, on the lemonade color, the Bobby Garland, that's what it was, Bobby Garland. There's little pack schools swimming around Rattlesnake, but they're not grouped up as hard as they usually are. I went into the mouth of the Keys, Clear Lake Keys, that is. Went in there a little bit. I didn't see any schools or anything inside there. It's still kind of ghost town. Most of the schools are out farther for the crappie wise, that is. Bass weren't 100% loving it. It's kind of a post front, or I should say kind of a fronty day. It was warm for like 3 days straight during the MLF that Ken Ma won, that same one. I don't know where Ken Ma won it. I have a pretty good guess. There was 15 boats in an area, and there's some pictures in MLF's profile with him, with the report or whatever. And he was in that area where there was like 15 boats floating around. If you don't know where it is, you just look up their MLF stuff. It's off Main Lake. Pretty much everybody knows it. It's a very good area this time of the year. The way he did it was different than a lot of other people were doing it. That's a good thing. As far as our experiences, it was raining, like a light drizzle and like a slight wind, and it was a cold wind. Me and Brian actually ended up going into Richmond Park and getting hot dogs, burgers, and a beer for about an hour and a half before we went back out. Had not caught a bass at that time. And that was, what, 11 when we pulled in there. Again, tournaments going on. We're not hitting the like #1 spots. We're kind of staying off of it. There was a lot of people in Rattlesnake. There was like 3 boats maybe 4 boats at most that we saw that were in the other arm, Redbud Arm. There was nobody in Redbud Arm. A handful of boats in Rattlesnake, but nothing crazy. Once you got out to Main Lake, definitely a lot more people on Main Lake and spread out everywhere. Mainly south side of Main Lake and north side of Main Lake. What else? Tournament after like 4 o'clock ish, we saw all the boats coming off the water, and that's when we started moving in, and we caught, I think, 5 for 18 pounds with like a 2-pounder on a rig, up just running one of the kind of northwest side of Main Lake. And that bite window lasted like half hour, 45 minutes, then shut down. So it's not like a hot bite. We had played around with it before, but like hit and miss. But it just seemed like there was like a half hour, 45-minute window. And then once that window hit, it shut down. It was getting late enough in the day that we basically headed out. I think we left the water like 5:30ish, something like that. Nothing too crazy, not enough to actually make a real video or like a regular video like I normally do. That's why I'm doing the live. Anybody have any questions about that before I move on? Let me make sure I can see that. Eric Lau says that he's umpiring tonight. Gonna miss it live. So you can always go back and watch it on the backside. So, because this will repost. If you do want to find all of the lives, you go onto my channel or onto my page, and then there's tabs across the top that'll say videos, shorts, lives, something else. Just click on the live tab, and you'll have all the lives that I have. In case you want to go back and watch them. These are a lot more candid than my regular videos. My regular videos are kind of already more candid. I think that was it for Clear Lake. Projected weather for Sunday at Berryessa was horrible. The day itself was not horrible, so it lied to me, or we looked up the wrong weather. One of the two. I think that's pretty much it for that. Showing rain or upcoming tournament at Clear Lake. Do you think the pattern is going to change? I'll be honest with you right now, for Clear Lake, I don't know what I'm going to do. Our tournament's not this coming up weekend, but the following weekend. I don't think our A-rig bite is going to be on fire. I don't have the know-how to try and do what Ken Ma did, getting 6 bites a day and getting the right bites at 25 to 30 pounds. I could see why the area he was in was really good, but not exactly on that one. There's something he's doing special, because dude can fish. Like I said, there was like 15 boats in that area. So I'm sure those fish I've seen a bait or two since then. Just like typical Clear Lake. Everyone finds out where it's won from, and then everybody piles in. But I will say, emphasis on bite windows. I know somebody that was throwing somewhat similar pattern as us that fished the New Gen, and they had like 12 pounds or so. Like, when I say somewhat similar, I mean like their kind of layout was about the same. I wasn't exactly where they're at, but I'm familiar with it. Let's see, what else do we got? John Kurgan asked, do you think topwater will be a play in the tournament weekend? If it is in the 70s, And those fish are running shallow. I think it could play, like, frog wise. You're gonna be in the junk, like in the junk, shallow. But that water's got to warm up. Right now, it's in that low 50s. I don't know if it'll play right now. I feel like going down Adam is probably a better shot than top water, but I wouldn't rule it out. I'm gonna have it with me. There's a lot of backwater at Clear Lake with the water being so high. There's tons of backwater. Like, you be going down a bank and you look into the brush and there is boats farther back than you even think is water, and they're floating, flipping around. Red's at work. Ron Burgundy. Red's at work. He wishes he was fishing, but no, he got drafted. Yeah, so I'd love for topwater. I can't say, I'd say that they're out of winter pattern for sure. Well, I shouldn't say for sure. There's a good chunk of them that are out of winter pattern, and they're definitely in that pre-spawn, and they're in a lot of the pre-spawn areas. That you just basically, if you're going to Clear Lake, think pre-spawn, and good luck battling with the boats around all those areas. I'm hoping there is not a big tournament while we have our club tournament, so that we can have a little bit of free room. Alicia, we've had a bit of consistent luck with the A-rig. At what point does that bite turn? A-rig is... A-rig's hit or miss. Well, I can't say A-rig's hit or miss. I throw A-rig, I will pick it up and throw it consistently through this time of the year. It is really hard to know, like, you have to know when to put it down. You can't just pick it up and throw it all day long. But with that said, there are days that you do want to pick it up and throw it all day long. I will say my feel for Clear Lake right now is you can get a solid bag, like 18 to 20 pounds with the A-rig when they're on them. But as far as being able to get those kickers, it's kind of like one of those random kickers. If you do get them on A-rig, most of those fish are, I feel like, are going to be in that like 3 to 4 pound class, maybe 2 pound class. If you're looking for the larger, bigger bites, you got to go to like pre-spawn areas with like swim baits, basically swim baits, or what Ma did, flipping through the bushes, and basically the normal kind of where you hear all the big fish are, that like, oh, this is what you do, cliche kind of stuff, is kind of where I think they are, I should say, at Clear Lake. Corey Hall, in general, what do you look for in a good pre-spawn area? I want spawning berry areas to not be far away. And when I say not too far away, like, Clear Lake is very like departmentalized. If you talk about Clear Lake, versus like Berryessa has entire areas, and like a place like Berryessa, I guess all the bigger lakes, you can have different areas of pre-spawn popping off. Like there's areas in Berryessa that the water warms up faster than other areas. So you can actually kind of get on a couple week bite of hitting pre-spawn if you know where to move in the lake. And it's not like a north goes here, this goes here, that goes here, like work your way down the lake kind of thing. It's different pockets. And the only way to know that information is to basically watch your temperatures and have enough time on the water. I will say Delta-wise, some of the temperatures that I've heard in Delta, I would not be surprised if there's an area on the Delta right now that has fish either making beds or on beds right now. You just kind of have to know where they are, and it'll be areas. You're mainly looking for areas that don't have a lot of wood have a lot of current, and that water can just kind of sit more stagnant and load up or heat up, that has good spawning area and a good supply of decent fish. Hopefully that answers your question, Corey. If not, clarify. Like I said, mainly you want spawn areas nearby. Oh, that's the other thing. I want deep water nearby too. I want to be able to see deep water and spawning areas and be able to draw lines in between. I kind of pick on more of the routes that I know they go from here to there. Part of that is you have to know where they're at in the summer, know where they're at in the winter, which is also can be where they're at in the summer, but be able to draw the lines in between and kind of fill in the dots and bounce until you figure it out. Channel to Drew, glide baits, too early to toss around. I've been tossing them around. I haven't been getting followers. I've not been solely tossing them around. Usually you kind of hear about it and you see, what's his name? G-Rat, Garrett with G-Rat. He usually starts posting glide bait videos when it's going. He may not post right away, but when they're going, he usually posts video because he's got a great product and he wants to promote that product. As far as I know, it's not going. I do know there's like a soft 6-inch bite that is going. I'm just not sure if they're willing to come up. The only thing I say to that is, I think every day that I've fished has been like non-consistent weather, and that changes them a lot for sure. If there was a good stable weather for like 3 days, nice warming trend for 3 or 4 days, I wouldn't discount glide. In fact, that will be on my, in a week and a half from now, that'll be in my boat for sure. So many opinion on glide baits. What are your go-tos and size? I personally stick to, that's from Brian Stacy. I personally stick to 6 inches. I'll go 6 to 8, tournament fishing wise. If I'm fun fishing, I'll go larger. I guess your biggest would be like a Shine Glide, or a, oh my gosh, I just blanked on it. The KGB, his new glide, I can't think of it right now. The Spro, Chad, sorry. The Chad, like that size, kind of the biggest. Other than that, it's like a River Sea 168, Clear Lake. Actually, almost all of them, for the most part, I throw Warden, Light Trout, and then the Party Crasher. Those three. There's definitely Malones. Do not slip on abalone or any of those Clearwater lakes. There's an abalone one. Don't sleep on that color too. Actually, speaking of Malones, let's break into, actually, Corey, do you stick your fish in practice or check size? Check size. I don't like sticking them. I prefer to look at them on forward scan, see how many are there. I've got enough time on forward scan, I can kind of get a ballpark of how big they are. Sometimes I want to know if they are bass, or especially like Clear Lake, or if they're what they are, carp, all these brain farts today, carp, catfish, crappie. For the most part, I can kind of tell where crappie are, bluegill. But there's definitely times at Clear Lake that catfish will set up like bass, and they'll act like bass dancing around your jerkbait and all that. Until you stick one, you don't know for sure, that is. But like other than that, practice-wise, like Malones or a deep Clearwater lake, I'll actually throw an A-rig over the top, especially when they weren't eating it, and run that A-rig and just watch them pull off the bottom. And you'll see them pull up at the bottom, look at your bait as it's going over. And that's all I want to know. I don't really care. I just want to know where they are. I'll figure out during tournament day how to get them to actually eat. Oh, Fishing with Jungle's here. What's happening, Jungle? Let's break into the part with basically watching, like you can watch my videos, you can watch other people's videos and be able to draw conclusions of how to get that to relate to your lake. What kind of spurred this up is I have a Malones video where I basically took 3 community hole spots that always has boats on them. That's always good. Doesn't matter what the water level is at. The fish have something to move up and down between. And I break down kind of how the fish are moving through there, what they're relating to, why they're relating there. One of those 3 spots has potential for like a big. I guess the other 2 do have potential for big, but not as big as other parts of the lake. And taking that information and using it to locate other locations on the same lake or on different lakes. Part of this is Corey, who's been asking questions on here, was gracious enough to help me understand a little bit more about Clear Lake during the pre-spawn than I even understood. And a lot of it was the generic, this is where you go. This is, you know, go to secondary points for what feeds into a spawning bay or a spawning whatever area from main lake, or go to main points and all that stuff. And everybody says that in a video, but until you see it in person, it doesn't register. So basically, I was able to take his Clear Lake ideas and apply that to Berryessa, and I caught a 498 and a 639 in back-to-back trips. And I probably would not have caught those fish or been in that area if I didn't think about how they set up at Clear Lake. Now, are they night and day, or are they exact mirrors? No. All I wanted was deep water. For Berryessa, it was secondary points, or almost third points, whatever they call that, tridary. Secondary points, like almost to the back of coves, not completely all the way back there. And then I would find bigger fish, and then I just had to figure out how to get them to eat. Oh, technically Brian's 4.5 would also fit that. His spotted bass, his PB spot and a half, the 4.5, would also fit that same theory. I think, yeah, my almost 5 is not on video, but if you go back to my last Berryessa video, I think it's March 3rd's video, you'll be able to see both of the big fish, and you can kind of draw conclusions between there of what I'm kind of looking at if you're familiar with the lake. That's all because of Clear Lake, right? And then the same thing is like Malones in that video that I have with the 3 different locations, where one's like a creek draw with some wood in the creek, and then another one is like a long rock bank that's all like mostly flat with little subtle points that's in there. And then the other one is actually kind of more of like a bay or a point with like an island hump and all that. Those are 3 different scenarios that you can apply to realistically any lake, obviously, but Delta and somewhat Clear Lake, but things don't have that same kind of setup for Clear Lake. So Clear Lake's kind of a little bit different beast, and so is Delta. Delta would be a whole nother video on all that stuff. Other examples would be if you went to my Malone's video, actually, a couple years ago. I think it was like the first year I started doing YouTube. I caught an 8 on a popper back in an area. At the time, I have no clue why I told myself to go back there. But looking at it now, it makes sense for where it was. That was actually a post spawn area, and there was bait back there. There was all sorts of stuff that was back in that area. There was a bunch of active fish. There was fish pulling off of beds. So now you have big fish that would have been bedding that are now trying to fatten up, but they would have recuperated. It's out like kind of main lake enough that they could have recuperated and moved back in. And it just makes sense. You can take that from Malone's and put that at Berryessa. You can put that at all these other areas. The same thing you can do for Delta videos. If you want to know what the tide is, during the video, if you can see the shore, see how much is exposed. I mean, if you're familiar enough with an area, you can see how much water or how much rock is exposed on that levee, and you can figure out what kind of tide that is. And then the other thing is like the direction that the boat is pointed. Usually up current, wind can be a factor, and then how fast they're burning a bank can be a factor, but a lot of times people face their boat up current because it's easier for boat control. So now you can tell if it's tied in, tied out, potentially. If you could see enough water, you can see tied in, tied out, and then you could take those examples. There is an island that I went to, I don't know, a couple years ago, and as the tide rips through it on outgoing tide, the front edge of that Thule line, I just caught, I don't know, I caught like a 6, 4, like good fish, chunk fish on spinnerbaits. Later on, during a tournament, basically realized that the tide was almost the same swing. Like the peak was almost the same and the bottom was almost the same by looking on my Lowrance on the tide charts, because it just like hit me, dawned on me. Roll back into that same area, throwing frogs, and just sticking 3s and 4s. Consistent, same tide flow, same everything. If you watch both those videos, and you can kind of tell, I don't know, I couldn't tell you which videos they are, but it's using those clues from those videos to try and duplicate that yourself to be able to do that. There's a lot of information, especially in my older videos where I actually had that like the day on the water kind of thing. I left a lot of those fish catches in on purpose because it gives a lot of clues, a lot of tips, a lot of things. Even if it's like a small dink fish catch, there was a reason behind it. There was something behind it, especially if it's like a bunch of big fish and then only a couple of dinks. There's a reason why, and that's like a kind of reminder to myself. If I rewatch that video, I'll know, hey, I went back through this area and it was low tide, high tide, whatever different scenario, later in the day, earlier in the day, and all those fish turned into smaller fish. If you notice that in videos, you can relate that to your own fishing. As far as the Malone's video, people had asked me, can you do this for other lakes? As far as I can see it, Pedro, Berryessa, probably Rollins, somewhat Comanche. Comanche fish is a little bit different, but not far off. You can relate, kind of the same kind of things. Basically, any deep Clearwater lake, what I pointed out at Malone's, you could do again at any of these other lakes. My only exceptions to that is if you get like out of the region. I do know that if you try and fish Tennessee lakes, which is TVA system, there's something with that TVA system that changes it. I don't know exactly what it is. One day I'll figure it out though, but it can change. I've also fished Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, and it's the same kind of thing. Like you can relate to those things. You just got to be familiar enough with the lake to be able to figure out where those spots are. Let's see if there's any comments. Randy will charge you $170 for what you just saying. Yeah. For those of you who don't know, I make $0 from YouTube. Absolute $0. This is actually just kind of a hobby to make me, I'm not really an introvert, but like, I'm not like an over the top kind of guy. This is to kind of make me step out of my shell. It's still a little weird for me to have somebody walk up to me at a bait shop, recognize me. I'd greatly appreciate every single one of you guys that has walked up to me. If you ever see me on the water, you can always idle by, say hi, something. I've been in tournaments, have people say stuff. It's kind of cool, kind of like still not used to it, but I definitely appreciate it. Every single person that even acknowledges that I even have a channel. That's not even that big of a channel. Get says there's an ABA same weekend as ours. Yeah, there's 2 days. There's a Saturday and Sunday ABA at Clear Lake at the same time. Alicia, what do you consider deep for Clear Lake? I had a heck of a time finding deep water. I got a story about that. Buddy of mine, Steven, I've always fished with him, Berryessa, fished with him, Delta, stuff like that. First time we go to Clear Lake, he said like a couple of times under his breath, like, it's only 8 feet deep. It's only 8 feet deep. The lake's shallow on the north end. If you spend a lot of time on the north end, it's shallow. Even the south end, or like the arms, shoot, it's probably deeper now that the water's all the way up, but realistically, like 40 feet is about the deepest it really is. I think there's areas that are like 60 or something like that, but I don't know where those are. I've caught fish in Clear Lake 30 foot, probably 35 actually, off of the docks on Windflower docks. I think that's like 35 at the base with the water up. So that's probably about what it is versus Berryessa. 35 is cruising depth for a spotted bass. Like I've caught Berryessa fish down to 75, 80 feet. You have to bring them up slow or you'll kill them. Express yourself a little bit from Jungle. Red Green 125 Miller. I believe that's my niece. I'm not sure. Might be wrong on that one. I'm just guessing. No, actually no, she's Red Rowdy. Hello everyone, and hello Red Green 125 Miller. Brian Stacy, we appreciate what you do. Appreciate it. Thank you. Let's go back to oh, it is my niece. Okay, good. I'll be there soon for a visit. The other things you can pull from videos is you can pull like changing weather conditions. Okay, so If you're watching the background of videos, that's basically what I'm kind of getting at, is watch the background of these videos. Don't just watch what they're doing. It's not about the bait is the number one thing I would say. It's more about where you're putting the bait. The more I get into this, the more I realize that just because you have a bait that's fancy, or let's say I gave you Ken Ma's exact bait, exact setup that he just won the MLF with. I bet you 90% plus could be in the same area throwing the exact same thing as him and not do what he did. At a certain point, it's not about the bait. It's about what you're doing with the bait, and it's about being in the right area, and it's finding the right area that seems to be, to me, kind of what you need to do. Now, I have fish on Berryessa that I have located, and I have them there, but I can't get them to eat. I got one of them to eat. That was my 6. I guess technically I got the 5 to eat too. It's a little bit different scenario, but I can get them to nip an A-rig, nip an underspin, but they won't eat it. Doesn't matter what color you put on. In fact, if you put on a different color, they will not even rise on it. The same exact bait with a different color doesn't rise, but the most you can get it to do is nip it. So at a certain point, even a color change is only so good. Those of you who know me, or you pay enough attention to the videos, I throw Sorry Steve like 90% of the time. It's my go-to bait. Followed by Morning Dawn if I'm at Berryessa. Recently, Margarita Mutilator, adding into that list. Again, you can watch somebody in a video, they'll catch a fish, and it'll be, Sorry Steve. Look at the background. What's the weather? Then later on in that video, they'll catch them on a drop or Morning Dawn. Look at the background. Little things like that you can pick up from videos that I think a lot of people look over and they just want fish catches, fish catches, fish catches. There's a lot of things that go into a fish catch besides setting the hook and reeling them in. There's a lot of things that happen to get that bite to start with. Referencing the 4-hour video that I did, and then there's one coming up soon, or that I'll be shooting soon, in a month from today, actually, at Clear Lake, is you get 4 hours of 4 different boats fishing, and you can see every adjustment that they make and what works and what doesn't work, and it adds up. If you actually pay attention, you're getting 4 boats experiences of on the water all at the same time by watching one video. I know it's really, really, really long, but there's a lot of things that either commentating has said or you can learn in that video. Redbud rattlesnake arms are much deeper than North Clear Lake. Oh yeah, I think I missed that part. Yes, Alicia. I think you've only launched out of North End, so you've only seen like the deepest water is like not even 20, what, 15? It's shallow. When you go down south in a couple of weeks, when we launch out of Rattlesnake, you'll see a lot more deeper water, a lot more stuff you'll be more familiar with. That's kind of like more Berryessa, but it doesn't quite fish that way. Alicia says she was too chicken across that time. She's, if you guys don't know, Alicia was the little red boat from the 4-hour video her and her son fished. She's got a tracker, and she is, in our last tournament, I think, let's see, they beat like 6 teams, something like that. She says she doesn't know how to fish, but I mean, she beat 6 teams out of, I forgot how many boats we had, but she beat 6 teams. I think they're getting the hang of it. So props to them for that. Any other questions as far as either Clear Lake, Berryessa, using information from videos that may not have anything to do with, it may not be on your lake, but you can take that information and spread it. If anybody's got questions on that, now's the time. As far as right now, everything's pre-spawn. They're not quite spawning yet. They will be, hopefully soon. That's pretty much it. My next video, I will probably do a live again next week. I am working this weekend, so I can't go fishing to make a real video, and I have a couple different topics that I want to talk about. Not sure if Brian or Red will be involved or not. Depends on if he has to work or not. But I probably will be live same time, Wednesday, 6:30. Other than that, I think that's it. So good luck, everyone. If you have any questions, you can always hit me up on Instagram. You can hit it down below. Corey says they're going to bite this weekend. I will tell you right now, I'm on call every 5 weeks. Every 5 weeks, starting this weekend, okay? The best weekends to fish is when I'm on call. So this weekend I'm working on call. Mark that on your calendar as the time to go. And then just jump forward 5 weeks for the rest of the calendar. Dead on every time. No doubt, slugfest on those days. So hope you guys can go fishing this weekend, even though I can't. And until next time, hope you get them.